Hello, this video is to demonstrate and discuss a 1966 or 67 Harmony H415 amplifier. The H415 is a 212 amp. It has two Jensen C12R speakers in it. Those are the ceramic magnet speakers. All the controls are top facing on this amp. It has two channels, two inputs for channel 1, two inputs for channel 2. Here are the channel 1 volume and tone, channel 2 volume and tone, and it has tremolo, intensity, and speed, and it's foot switchable. This amp has two EL84 output tubes, puts out probably about 14 or so, 14 to 18 watts, somewhere in that range. Very much like an old kind of Bluesbreaker, Marshall-y kind of sound. Also very similar to a lot of Valco tones from the day, although this is mistakenly attributed as a Valco-made amplifier often. I do not believe it is. Valco never made really anything close to this. They didn't make anything with EL84s. There are some other distinct differences we'll get into a little bit later as well, but I'm going to shake things up a little bit this time, and I'll do a tone demo first, and then afterwards, if you want, stick around and we'll take a look at the schematic and also the guts of the amplifier. But for the tone demo portion, we're going to be using a Telecaster. This is an American Standard Tele. I'm just going into channel 1. The volume is less than halfway up, and the tone is backed off just a hair. There, it's got a lot of punch, a lot of really nice gritty overdrive tone whenever you dig into your strings. Kind of goes seamlessly between cleans and dirties, just like you would expect a real nice vintage amp to do. Not a whole lot of difference, it seems, between channels 1 and 2. I'll go ahead and put it in channel 2 anyway. There's one input labeled mic on channel 2. It's possible it's a bit different. And we'll go through it just to check, but we'll look at the schematic a little later and see if there is in fact any difference there. got channel 2 on this. It also has tremolo with speed and intensity. Goes very slow as well on this example. So yeah, really nice tremolo. Again, dual channels. You actually have 2 inputs on each channel, so you have the option if you want to jumper the channels, it looks like. So yeah, let's take a look at the schematic and see what this thing is all about. Really excellent tones, and we'll also take a look at the guts and try to decipher who actually made this thing. I have my suspicions, and I'll reveal those a little bit later, so stick around. Okay, before we look at the schematic here, Postman Pat is going to show us the amplifier itself. Here's a closer look at the front of the amp. Here are the inputs. There's channel 1, channel 2, and you can see one of the channel 2 inputs is labeled mic. Usually those are the hotter inputs, and again we're going to check the schematic on that to see if that's the case on this one. There is channel 1 and channel 2 with the volume and tone. And there's the tremolo with intensity and speed, and it's foot switchable. It has a standby switch and an on-off with polarity. Now this has a 3-prong cord, so somebody has been inside this thing. It's at some point, and we'll see. Probably take a look at what's been changed once we get in there. This model has the plastic handle. This is not the plastic handle, the same plastic handle that Valco used. That breaks quite a bit, but still this handle is very flimsy, and I would not trust it with this heavy of an amp. You know, this isn't the heaviest amp in the world, considering the speakers are the C12R, which has a little bit of a smaller magnet than some of their others. But still, I mean, I'm going to lift this amp off the ground, and you can see what the handle does. I mean, there we're off the floor right there. So we're kind of stretched to the limit before we actually get this thing off the floor. I don't trust these, so usually when I pick this amp up, I pick it up by the bottom. Let's turn this thing around. You can see here there's like a real nice kind of almost faux ostrich skin sort of covering here. Really cool covering. I haven't seen on any other amps that I recall. but here is the back of the amp. Now this thing has some nuts actually that we have to take out here, well, they're screws, but we need to get something to get these off. They're not your standard Phillips or flathead screws, so I'll have to get something to get these off before we can take a little closer look. So let's get something to get this back panel off, and we'll take a closer look. Okay, we've gotten our back panel off this thing, and we can see here that they've given us a handy schematic. There's a little bit of what looks like maybe some wax or something, perhaps from one of the transformers that's leaked out onto it. Now that's not in the proximity of a transformer, so I'm not sure where that would have come from unless it dripped down from a candle or something someone had on the amp at one time. There's no evidence on the outside, so that's just pure speculation. I'm not having to rely on this, but you can at least see here on this schematic that we do have a couple of 6BQ5 output tubes, a couple 12AX7s, and a 6 AU6 tube. There's also a 5Y3 rectifier. And we'll get a little more in the schematic a little bit later, but that's the back door. Something unusual is that instead of putting these braces for holding the back door on the inside of the amp as normal, these are actually attached to the back door itself, so that's unusual. You don't see that in many designs, and definitely not in any Valcos I've ever seen. Here's the inside of the back of the amp, and you can see those Jensens there, and they are date coded the 41st week of 1966. The 220 is Jensen. You can see over here they are C12Rs, and they have a bit of a smaller magnet than, say, the C12N would have. And we have a pair of those. A perfect match for this amp, it seems. Sound great. What looks like the original can cap here. Here is the power transformer. Not an oversized power transformer, and it looks original as well. We have what is the output transformer here, labeled H415, which is the same number as the model of the amp. So this may be one of those situations where the transformer was actually made by the company that made the amp, or they had these stamps so that they could keep them in inventory, keep them straight in their inventory, that this actually went with this amp. And that's something you don't really see on Valcos either, that sort of stamp. And I don't recall ever seeing this on any Danelectros or anything else I'm familiar with. So that's a bit unusual also. That could be just a full coincidence, but I kind of doubt it. Looks like we have here some Harmony labeled RCA 6BQ5s. Also, the original Harmony labeled preamp tubes are still in this thing as well, and not sure who made those, but we'll pull those and take a look in a bit. But let's get that chassis out and get a closer look. Okay, we have the chassis pulled from this amp, and I mean, they really didn't want anybody to get to this thing because the whole baffle board and the speakers and chassis and all comes in one piece, and I'm gonna have to get the nut driver out again, and in order to get this removed from the baffle board, which is a bit unusual. You can see here better look at the cabinet on the inside, and you can see the whole thing is constructed of what looks like nice birch plywood all around the cabinet itself. And this is something I've never really understood. They'll use good birch plywood on the cabinet, on every part of the cabinet in this case, and then they come over here to the baffle board and they use all this press board. Well, not press board, but they use like a it's like a man-made board here on this. And I don't know why they would do that with the baffle when they've used all the good plywood on the cabinet. It's like they come right up to the finish line and they're doing so well, and then they do this for a baffle. So anyway, it seems to be serving the purpose. The amp sounds great, but that's one little thing that could have been improved. A little piece of masonite here covering the bottom piece. Looks like they do have a couple pieces of wood on the ends of the
the chassis itself, and we'll see if that comes with the chassis. It probably comes away from it. But let's get this the rest of the way apart. We got all the screws out, and before we turn the chassis over here, we'll take a look at these tubes. You can see they're all original Harmony labeled tubes. Every one of them, in fact, except for the rectifier, which is most definitely a replacement. It's labeled Japan. Not sure who made these tubes. They look like they might be not sure exactly. I'll have to look that up. I'll post that if I find out. But anyway, yeah, let's turn this thing over. Get a better look at the guts. And this is going to be a bit awkward, but at least get to take a look. See, it's got mostly original stuff. It's definitely got a 3-prong cord. The death cap has been removed. It's still got a couple of the original Goodall caps you can see here and here. These are new electrolytics. There's another Goodall. These have probably all been replaced. So we've got several components that have been replaced along with the rectifier. Not sure what it would have been the problem, but they probably just went through and replaced some stuff that was drifting. So it's definitely been completely serviced. Not much to do with this one, except play it and enjoy it. But just a couple observations though while we're in here. We noticed this does not, even though this has a couple of wood braces at the end of the chassis for support, they are not attached to the chassis itself. So this is definitely not a Valco product, no matter what you read online. I've seen some speculation that this might be a Valco product, but this is most definitely not. Every Valco product you'll ever see pretty much has especially from the 60s, will have the wood brace on either end of the chassis attached to the chassis itself. So this is not a Valco product, and I'm pretty confident in saying that. My guess is this thing was made by Lectrolab. The only Lectrolabs I've actually owned were from the 50s and had a completely different build. So this one's definitely not, it doesn't look like the other Lectrolabs that I've had, but it wouldn't, since the other ones were from the 50s. But that is my guess, and if somebody has a better guess, you're welcome to educate me on this, but I'm pretty certain that this is going to be a Chicago-made Sound Projects Incorporated Lectrolab product. Let's take a look at the schematic and see what the schematic says about how this thing is put together. Okay, before we get into the schematic on the H415, I just wanted to, for comparison purposes, bring out this little H400. Now this little H400 amp, you can see the similarities in style. It's from around the same era for Harmony. I believe it's around 1966 also. And you can see it has the top-facing, front-facing chassis, the same knobs on both. This one has a smooth face, where the H400 has a little bit of a dimpled, kind of looks like a little pressed, embossed face here. So that's definitely different. Same script and everything though. Harmony Company, Chicago, Illinois. Here we have the same thing, the Harmony Company, Chicago, Illinois, 60632. So, and they're all in the same font, same script. So I'm thinking it's very likely that the same company made both. The grill cloth is exactly the same on both. And again, the cabinets are constructed very similarly. Same handle. I've turned this one upside down and looked at the feet. These feet are probably replacements, and they're white. The ones on this are black on the H415. I think they're the original ones. But just little details like that will sometimes give you clues. This one has the this one's all original pretty much on the inside. Has the same Harmony labeled tubes. And these all say Japan on them, and actually when I got a second look at the 415 and its tubes, they actually say Japan on them as well. So those are Japanese tubes. Not sure if they're Hitachi or what they are, or what. So maybe somebody can inform me on that. But it looks like the cabinets are in the same way. You have to actually take the entire baffle out, just like on this other one. So they are very similarly constructed. You have to take the entire baffle out of the H400 to get into the guts. You have to take screws out here, and the screws are nut driver. You need a nut driver to actually get those out. They're not, they're not straight head or Phillips head either. So very similar construction. Everything looks pretty much the same. The difference here is this whole cabinet is made of pressboard material, whereas this one has a nice cab with actual plywood, birch plywood. So there are some differences, but this is the cheaper amp, so you would expect that. But just looking at these two amps, I would say with 100% certainty that they're made by the same company. This amp is touted on most forums and on the Lectrolab history website, which I'll put a link in the description to, as definitely being Lectrolab. I think because of there's actually evidence of other Lectrolab labeled amps with the exact same schematic as this, so they have identified this as Lectrolab, I think, based on that. So, but I can pretty much identify this one also with 100% certainty as Lectrolab based on the comparisons between this one and this one. So I think we pretty much have solved the mystery of who made this amp. Now let's take a look at the schematic. Okay, if the video evidence we've seen so far isn't enough to convince us that this amp is indeed Lectrolab, let's look at a couple more things here. We are on the Lectrolab WordPress website. There, up there is the URL if you want to type it in and take a look for yourself. But we can see here the transformers on this particular Lectrolab made amplifier. This is an R600C, I believe. If we look at the transformers, they have the same script, the same white stamp script as our example of this Harmony H415 has. If we scroll over a couple times, there's another shot of the power transformer on this particular one. Very similar to the script that we saw on the output transformer of our Harmony. And we see here that Lectrolab, at least around the time that this amp was made, were also using Goodall capacitors, which usually capacitors will help you identify amplifier makers. If you can't find any other identifying thing about them, more times than not, amplifier makers would use the same capacitors fairly consistently because they were usually getting those from one source that was close to where they were manufacturing their stuff. So that's even more good evidence that this is indeed a Lectrolab made amplifier. So sorry for the sidetrack again there, but let's take a look at the schematic now. Well, here we are finally taking a look at this Harmony schematic. Might be a little bit anticlimactic at this point, I understand that, but we'll take a look at it anyway. We can see one of the questions that we had was why one of the inputs would have been labeled mic. It looks to me, on the schematic at least, as if, and I probably should have measured and looked at all those a little more closely when we were in there, but forgot to do that. But it looks to me on the schematic like every one of those is a 68K resistor on the input, and there's no difference. We'll zoom in a little bit so we can see. You can see every one of these is 68K, so I see no difference really between either channel, and I see no difference between the first and second input on either channel. So not really sure. Other than there's a 390K a grid resistor on this first channel, and it looks like that might be a 2.7 meg on the second channel. Looks like 2.7 meg. So the second channel, you know, that could it's providing more, you know, resistance to ground here. So it could be that we're getting getting a better signal into this second half of the 12AX7, and that's another thing to note here, is that each channel uses a half of one of the 12AX7s as its first gain stage, and so indeed you can plug into one channel and jumper over to the second channel to parallel these first two gain stages, these first two tubes. After that, we go along to our tone stack for each channel, and then it's sent through the first half of our second 12AX7 for yet another gain stage, and then it looks like we have a cathodyne phase inverter before it gets sent off to our EL84 power tubes, and then out to the transformer and speaker. Looking down here at the tremolo does appear to be, here's our intensity. The tremolo appears to be the bias varying type of tremolo. Looks like we're varying bias here, so that looks like the type of tremolo we have. Not much else to report on the schematic. Everything looks pretty cut and dry. One thing I do know is that this schematic does produce an exceptional amplifier. We can see here actually the bias on the output tubes is cathode biased. And this is a really good sounding amp. And there is the schematic. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time. If you haven't already subscribed, please be sure to subscribe for more of these demo videos. I do a lot of videos like this, and lately we've been delving a little bit more into the guts of these amps and doing some modifications and so forth. If that's the sort of thing you're into, be sure to subscribe, and hope to see you next time.